text message that said there was another school shooting. Thank God there was an SRO there that was able to take care of the threat. We don't have that luxury here. Mr. Mayor, you said before that we have a 2-minute response time. I don't want to argue that point. I've been in law enforcement for over 20 years. 2 minutes in this town is not going to happen unless it's at shift change at that building. When my kids go to school every day, their safety is in your hands and school board. I work a full-time job. I can't go to school every day with them. Somebody's got to protect them. I rely on you. I'm not going to regurgitate a lot of what Kara and what Allison said, but you asked and challenged us at that meeting last Sunday, is there a better alternative than school resource officers? And I took that away. I talked to a lot of professionals that are a lot smarter than I am in the law enforcement community. One is the former head of the Chesapeake Police Academy. The other was the former head of the Portsmouth Sheriff's Academy. And both of them say that the law enforcement community and DCJS agree SRO is the best first stand today. It's not just about SROs. There's been some talk about metal detectors at the school, and that's a great idea. I'd love to see them. When you go through a courthouse, there's metal detectors there. When you go through an airport, there's metal detectors, but there's also armed law enforcement officers. If a teacher, assistant principal, administrator is manning those metal detectors and they find contraband, a firearm, or a knife, they don't have arrest authority to deal with it. They've got to call the police and wait. If there's a gun coming through that, there's not a lot they can do. I don't know of any school mass shooting where a metal detector stopped it, but we know several where our SROs have, or law enforcement officers on the scene. There's a study out now that says there's only been 3 school shootings that have been stopped by an SRO returning fire, and they are absolutely right. That's a scary number until you dig in it and realize that the rest of them, over 80%, have been stopped by law enforcement arriving on scene and them surrendering or them taking their own lives. I hate that we have to have this discussion in the town that I love, where I graduated from high school here 30 years ago this year. A town that when I went to high school here, there was trucks and gun racks and guns in those gun racks in our parking lot so kids could go hunting after school. We don't live in that world anymore. One thing that you said, Mr. Green, that really struck me last week was, 20 years ago, George, I don't think we needed SROs here. He says, but you know what, times are changing. I'm starting to think we do. I appreciate you having an open mind, and thank you for bringing this up tonight. So again, gentlemen, lady, I apologize for my very direct approach that I started 2 weeks ago. I respect and appreciate all that you guys do to protect our children, but it is your job with school board to protect my children. And I'm hoping that you're going to make the necessary changes in your budget just to make that happen. And I also hope and pray that this committee that you've put together is not just a Band-Aid to kick the can down the road. We've not had SROs here long enough. It's time to start our school year next year. And I also made a pledge last week that if you decide to be able to get SROs in our school this year, I personally will pay for the law enforcement officer, whether it's a deputy sheriff from York County or a police officer in this town that needs to go to SRO school. I'll pay for their hotel and per diem for the week. You have a school coming up in Richmond, Virginia in April, and I'll take care of their officers' expenses so we can have one finishing this year outright. Thank you for your time.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, if not, I'll close the audience for visitors and ask council for approval of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of our regular session of March the 12th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, I thought there was going to be an amendment. Oh, it's a work session. Got it. Okay, very well. All right, so Evie, please.
Councilwoman Andrews,
Aye.
Councilman Cannella,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye,
Mr. Mayor Hunt, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
very well. And the work session?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of the work session from 2018 with an addendum to make note that the discussion on the tax relief program was tabled until further discussion.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion made and seconded. We approve the work session minutes as well. Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Evie, please.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Councilman Cannella,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, first item under unfinished business is the Community Block Development Grant or Development Community Development Block Grant. So with that said, that was the subject of one of the speakers, so
Absolutely.
let's go right forward with this.
Presented back, if you recall, back in January, we tabled the item to give Delegate Hessel some time to research the issue of whether or not this could be reimbursed to homeowners affected by Hurricane Isabella, and they raised their homes themselves. Unfortunately, as you see with my package, we got correspondence from Matt Weaver, who works for the Department of Housing and Community Development, that cannot be the case. So I brought back forth to you the resolution to move forward with a program income plan to use that $75,000 to mitigate the erosion in the outfall ditch by McDonald's.
All right. Randy, anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Mayor, thanks. First of all, this whole thing frustrates everyone involved, not just Ms. Curtis, but I think everybody. There were a whole lot of expectations and representations made to folks years and years ago in the immediate years following Isabel, and they weren't always able to be followed through with. So it was hoped when this money became available that we could use it to deal with some of those issues. And that really was the tabling that we did. All of the information that we had received over the years and the information that the folks that were affected, like Ms. Curtis, had received, the answer was definitely no. You could not use these funds, which were made available or paid back, really. There were folks that were in grant programs. They left before the grant program required period of holding that house for that particular grant concluded, so they had to pay back a portion, and it went into a special fund, which has pretty tight rules for it. We had hoped in tabling it last time that Delegate Hessel trying one more time, and I think he shook every tree he could on behalf of the city and the people affected, could get a different result, and we did not. We got the confirmation back on Friday from Mr. Weaver, it is, right? Again, that the money could not be used for those purposes. So it has to be used for something where you can demonstrate damage that was caused by Isabel, and it also has to be sufficient to do the repair. So if we had let's say, $1 million road improvement that we could prove was damage caused by Isabel, it still wouldn't be sufficient or allowable under the program rules, because the funding itself has to be sufficient, as I understand it. It can't be joined with other funding. So we're looking for a relatively small project. We can't reimburse homeowners that raise houses on their own, and we have to be able to prove damage caused, and we certainly did receive a damage in 2003 with Isabel and erosion in that ditch, which we continue to deal with till this day. I think we all wish it was different, but we are where we are, and you'll recall from our last conversation, we began this discussion most recently in earnest because we were notified by the folks at the state that if we didn't come up with a plan to spend it soon, they were simply going to ask for it back. And I think that sort of brings you up to now. So your options are to either move forward or to table for some other outcome, but I don't know what other outcome is really possible at this point.
Well, I guess just speaking for that, this is a pass-through grant, right? So basically, it's the state of Virginia.
We currently
pass it
hold
through.
the money.
Right.
We are currently holding the money that is in question.
Right. And so it would, so it was a promise made by the state that to the homeowners, and I've read the letters, and I think it was poorly worded. So we tabled it. We've gotten clarification from our state delegate, and that nothing else can be done. And so our decision here is use it or lose it.
That is
Is that
correct.
right?
That is
So we
correct.
found a small thing that we can do to protect it. Okay? So that's it in a nutshell. All right, so is there a motion to proceed?
Mr. Mayor, I reluctantly move that we adopt a resolution declaring that the city will provide a program income plan for the inactive program funds received for the Community Development Block Grant to the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development.
Second.
And I'd rather spend it on lottery tickets than give it back to the people that messed it up to start with.
I heard a motion made and seconded that we, I heard a motion made and seconded that we proceed with this item. And questions or comments of council?
If I understood you right, Randy, so there are no, because, I heard Ms. Curtis
Florida.
express some heartburn about it being used on that. So we have no other projects in the city that were a result of Isabel that would be within that $75,000 threshold that we could spend it on other than that?
The project in question was developed by the engineering department and Public Works, also with Tanya, within the framework. I can't tell you we couldn't possibly find another project. That's the one that they put forward as the one that they thought best fit the criteria, was the highest priority amongst what the criteria allowed for. If you wanted to, as a council, you could table this and we could go back to the drawing board, but that is their recommendation within the criteria itself.
And Councilwoman Andrews, based on Ms. Curtis' recommendation, I did ask the engineering department today prior to coming to the meeting, was there any other projects identified that could be utilized? The problem exists is that this is 15 years ago, and so we had to find a project that's still ongoing for the city that we haven't already corrected. And based on the dollar threshold, this was the project that was determined that would have an impact for all low-income and moderate members of the residents of Poquoson. So that's why we put it forward to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, very good. Any other comments? Okay, Evie, please.
Councilman Canella?
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews?
Reluctant, aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
A reluctant aye.
Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
Mayor Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0 with a lot of reluctant votes.
Okay, got that. Thank you. Yeah, I'll do that during my directives. I'll cancel that. Okay. All right, so comments of the city manager. Hold on. Hold on, I'm sorry. I got the other item on my mind. Resolution making appointments to the Economic Development Authority. Councilman Green.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution making appointments to the Economic Development Authority, EDA, with the following names inserted: Alan E. Meeks and Donald F. Booth, Jr., whose terms will expire March 31st, 2022.
Second.
A motion made and seconded that we appoint those members. Questions or comments? Evie, please.
Councilman Southall? Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Canella?
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews?
Aye.
And Mayor Hunt? Aye. Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, very well. Now, comments of the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Only one thing this evening. This is something we were working on all the way up to close of business today, so it is not quite in the polished form that I wish it was, but because you don't have a meeting for 2 weeks, I'd rather bring it up now in the interest of moving forward. Council members will recall at your last meeting, you provided both an appropriation and authorization to move forward with replacing the fuel tank at Public Works. That's the fuel tank that serves pretty much all of our vehicles. Since that time, the number one bidder, the one that you authorized the award to, has withdrawn their bid, and they were able to do that before we got them under contract. And so now we find ourselves in a position either needing to reinitiate a new bid process, or alternatively, negotiating with the two other bidders that also bid something that met or exceeded what we asked for, to see if we couldn't bring in something that was comparable at no more than the cost previously appropriated at $65,000, And I would just ask your consent, and this is actually technically something that is within my approval authority, but because you had to approve the appropriation last time, I wanted to make sure we were being transparent. I guess I'm asking your consent to go ahead and negotiate with the second and third bidders to see if we can't bring in something comparable at or very close to the price that you had previously approved. If it is a small amount, I'm hesitant to put that out publicly because the small amount will go right to it. If we have to go to a small amount above that $65,000 approval, I would propose to transfer that within existing appropriations. But certainly we're not talking about a great deal of money. But the alternative is to go back through the process, which could be another 2 months before we get back to the point we're at right now. And we've had this problem for several months. For members of the public, our fuel tank that serves public works in our city vehicles is a gas tank and a diesel tank, and it rusted through. And we looked to repair that. The cost of repairing it because of the repair seemed inordinately high for what we were getting, which would be a patched old tank that had already rusted through in places. So council approved moving forward with a new tank. But unfortunately for us, we didn't get the contract fast enough, and they withdrew. I would note that during that time, coincidentally, the steel tariff announcement probably didn't help.
Okay.
So if that's okay with council,
You good? Good. Bud, you good? You good with that? Yes. Okay. All right, so Randy, I agree. We don't want to continue to fuel our vehicles up in York County.
yes, sir.
So move forward with that plan.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's all I have, sir.
Okay. See, council directives. Bud, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to offer my congratulations to the DAR and thank Mr. Bill Samler for coming here and making his presentation. And I'd offer a special congratulations to Johnny Mercer. Ran into Johnny in a restaurant here a couple weeks ago, and he told me he was having to retire because of requirements, but he really wished he could make it to 50 years. And Johnny, I wish they'd let you have 50 years, okay? But congratulations on your award. And I'd like to thank everyone here and at home who has participated in the city government, okay? It's very important that you do that, and I ask that it continue. I also have one other thing that I'd like to bring up. Tanya, can you, thank you very much. Okay, you already got it up there. The family of Charlie McDaniel has offered a gift to the city of a carousel. I'm not certain that's exactly the one that I'm talking about, but it's one of 2 or 3 that they made, and they're all nearly exactly alike. That's about 3.5 feet wide, or 4 feet wide, and it stands about 3 or 4 feet tall. The one that they offered to the city was exhibited at the Poquoson Seafood Festival and won the first award. It demonstrates a part of the history of the past and what amusements used to look like, things that children today are not aware of. And it demonstrates art. It demonstrates what you can do with your hands. It moves, it has lights, it has music, and it replicates a full-size carousel. Along with that gift, they offered a requirement, and they wanted it to be protected. It operates just like a real one, and because of that, all the gears that are used to move it are very miniature. The horses that move up and down, just like the real one, are very delicate, and so little hands that would just have to put their hands on them to see what it felt like and how it worked would break it. And so they required that we put something around it to protect it. We looked at the cost of a plexiglass wall to protect that, and the cost came in higher than we expected, and the best price we could get was close to $2,000. Rather than add further costs to the tax burden of the citizens, I'm requesting that we get donations from private business or individuals to pay for the cost of the enclosure so that we can have that. The McDaniels have given many gifts to the city. They've supported the Poquoson Museum And now they offer this to be presented at the entrance of the library for all the children and adults who attend the library to see. And so if you are interested in contributing to the protection of this gift so that we can demonstrate it for the city and the children, I ask that you give a check or a monetary gift to the city, to the treasurer of the city of Poquoson, / Carousel Project. Thank you very much.
Jana?
I just wanted to thank Deputy Mercer for his service. We appreciate all our public servants in the city. I wanted to thank Thomas for sort of lighting the match on the SRO officer, and our citizens for sort of taking that torch and running with it. That's really what government is all about, is citizens being involved. It warms my heart to see a bunch of people here. That's how I got where I am, by being in your seat and standing up at that podium and speaking. So I really appreciate everybody that got involved in this. I wish I could have been at the citizen meeting Sunday, but I was 2,000 miles away. That's why I wasn't there. But glad that some of my fellow council members were there to support you. I've never been against an SRO. Obviously, I'm new to council. My youngest child graduated in 2008, so I haven't had kids in the school since then to even think about it. And actually, prior to this happening, I hadn't really thought about it, not having kids in the school and not being involved in any discussions on council regarding that. I think we place officers in places where we have large amounts of citizens, like the Seafood Fest or any kind of large gathering of citizens. And our schools are a large gathering of our citizens. So I think it's appropriate. And I am really happy with the way that we're doing it and the steps that we're doing it to make sure that it's right, because it's really important that we get this right. I wouldn't want to see us get it wrong, because that could be a disaster for our students. There's tons I could say on this, but we don't have a lot of time here. I do have a Facebook page that I've maintained since I ran. I posted today on the public media sites, which I don't comment on, but I did post a link to my site where I did post something about my feelings about the whole issue. So if you're interested in that, please look for that link and go there and follow that page. That's where I will post any comments that I have to say, rather than public social media. And just thank you again to the citizens that came tonight very much. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
This will be kind of redundant, but congratulations to Johnny, and it was really good to see all the citizens out here. As Councilwoman Andrews said, that's the way democracy should work. So it was really good to see all y'all. That's all I have.
Councilman Hux.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to all with us tonight. Thank you for being here. Good evening also to those at home watching on TV. With regard to the resolution that we passed this evening in support of an SRO-like program, the council felt it was prudent to pursue a joint effort, including all stakeholders, which are the community, the school system, and your city government. To that end, all stakeholders are represented on the committee. The intent of the committee is to craft a thoughtful, well-researched, and well-informed response to the issue of school safety in lieu of a knee-jerk reaction that is tailored specifically to suit the unique needs of our unique school system and community. When the work of the committee is complete, a recommendation will be brought to the City Council for review and official authorization. Please be assured that the committee will work with the highest level of urgency, but will not be rushed. In summary, thank you to Chief Cliff Bowen and the Poquoson Police Department for taking on the extra burdens to get us through the short-term course of action by increasing the duty time at Poquoson High School through our police school liaison program. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Green.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Just two things. I'd like to congratulate Gail Wojciechowski and Debbie Pummel on the wonderful Poquoson Education Foundation Gala that they had last Saturday night. It was another big success. to raise money for the schools for teacher grants and scholarships. So it was well-attended, and it's a lot of hard work for them to put that together. Also, to remind everybody, tomorrow is Food Bank Day at the old City Hall building from 10 to 1. This particular one is hosted by the Poquoson Yacht Club and the Poquoson Exchange Club. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Canella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Same thing, I will come off as redundant, but certain congratulations to Mr. Johnny Mercer, and a big thank you to the citizens here and the ones who aren't here that have been active in this school resource officer discussion. And like Councilman Huck says, it's been a joint effort of this council to, respond to your pleas, and we're moving in that direction. And I would go as far to say this is certainly a start to a very important issue, but certainly not an end. And I'm very happy with the decision we made tonight. That's all.
Okay, and Councilman Hucks and Councilman Green, I appreciate the two of you working together to get that well-thought-out process together and get the consensus of your fellow council members. I really appreciate that. I will tell you that I don't have any other comments on the school resource officer. I do share one sentiment with the vice mayor here that the times, we can't ignore them, but it sure is a shame, and that money, we've been promised money by the state before. I think we just turned, I know citizens have seen money from the state before disappear before their eyes, and I think Karen Curtis can tell you that. So it will be something that the city of Poquoson does. We'll obviously look at any grants, but whatever we do here, it will be on, within a year or so, will be our responsibility to proceed forward, because a grant is only a partial ticket anyway. So it is on our priority list to solve this issue, and it is my hope that Councilman Green's thing of making sure we get this right was something that we wanted the committee to do, because we see a combination of things solving the issue overall. Also, based on our ability to move through this issue a little bit faster than what we thought we would be, I'm going to cancel the work session that I had set up with the school board, because they are already represented on this board, and we don't need to meet about it for what's the next action step. So I appreciate council's deliberation on that, and appreciate the action moving us forward. All right, anything else? If not, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
We do have a closed session, sir.
Darn. All right, I may have to miss that one. Okay, so we do have a closed session pursuant to Section 2.2, 3711A7, as amended, to discuss a specific legal matter regarding the advice of legal counsel. Is there a motion to go?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Certainly. Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
Councilman Canella?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Mayor Hunt?
Aye.
Mayor Hunt, the motion carries by a vote of 7 to 0.
Okay, very well. We're in closed session.